Now, earlier on, I mentioned that I am going, even though, despite the fact that the item required the item required a runner to explain. A runner was tasked to explain properties of anyone, but for what? For clear dissection, I'm going to consider all the 4 substances. So next we look at aluminium. So we are going to give properties of aluminium using still our statements there: up, state, solubility, structure, melting point, conduction, density, which is the same as science solves structures money cannot do. So what are the properties of aluminium? The properties of aluminium are here. So for aluminium, aluminium is a metal. How do metals exist? By the way, let me remind you that we are dealing with, for aluminium, we are dealing with a giant metallic structure. We are dealing with a giant metallic structure which has this form. Kindly, previously we saw that the giant metallic structure has this form. It has metal ions that are attracted to delocalized valence electrons of a metal via metallic bonds. So that is the giant metallic. Why are metals solid? Now these metals are made up of stronger bonds. Am I on? I don't know. Let me hope that I'm on. Yes, I think I'm on. So it exists as a solid at room temperature. Why? These metals are made up of metallic bonds which join their atoms together. So this is more of having a compact structure. Those metallic bonds, they compactly held ions and the electrons together. So it exists as a solid at room temperature due to strong metallic bonding between aluminium ions and delocalized valence electrons. Then solubility, metals do not dissolve in water. Therefore, here we are going to say that aluminium is insoluble in water and other polar solvents. Why? Here, water molecules cannot break apart their structures. Then what is the structure of a metal? A metal has giant metallic structure. It has a giant metallic structure. And what do you have in a giant metallic structure? In a giant metallic structure, one has, like the way we have seen, one has aluminium ions. One has positive ions of a metal. The metal in this case is aluminium. So one has aluminium ions and the delocalized electrons, which are held together by metallic bonds. Then melting point, metals are very strong, therefore should have very high melting point. So in this case, we are going to say that aluminium has a high melting and boiling point. Why? Still due to presence of stronger metallic bonds that require much heat to break. So due to presence of stronger metallic bonds that require much heat to break. Then what of conduction? We can see that one can have conduction of heat, one can also have conduction of electricity. Metals conduct electricity. Why? In their structure, we have delocalized electrons. So here we are going to say that conducts electricity. Why? Due to presence of delocalized electrons within its structure. Then density for aluminium. Most metals have high densities, but for aluminium is that, do you know aluminium foil, that one which they use to package foodstuffs? That is aluminium. The one which is used to make parts of an aeroplane, that is aluminium. Why? It is used to make parts of an aeroplane because it has a low density. That's why that's why you see that it is alloyed with other metals to make aircrafts, which can which can sustain buoyancy within air because of its light weight. Therefore, here we are going to say that it has a low density. It has a low density. Why? It has a low density due to its low atomic weight. Aluminium has, it is element 13. It is element 13 with the atomic number 13 and atomic weight 27. So that weight is very low and its structure is relatively open. So the first 5 properties, I should note that the first 5 properties, these properties here, the first 5 properties, of exists as a solid, insoluble in water, has giant metallic structure, high melting point, conducts electricity, those ones. Solid, insoluble in water, giant metallic structure, high melting point, conducts electricity. All those apply to any other metal. However, for density, I have said, not every metal has a low density. Not every metal has a low density. So these other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they are qualifiers. They qualify for any other metal. If it is iron, you give the same properties. However, there are also others here, which a serious learner can as well. What are those other properties? So other points, we can also have malleable and ductile. Metals are malleable and ductile. Let me write something here. There is also another one which I have just recalled. So they also conduct heat, by the way. They conduct heat. So let me first explain this. Metals are malleable and ductile. What does this thing mean? Malleability. Malleability relates to the ability of hammering a metal into thin sheets. That's why aluminium is, it's a kind of a property that gives a metal flexibility. That's why you will find aluminium when it is used to make these, what are they called, the door shutters? Those ones. You will find aluminium used in packaging. That aluminium foil. You find aluminium used in making parts of aeroplane. Why? Because it is malleable. Now, you see in packaging, it exists as a foil, but in parts of aeroplane, it is not existing as a foil. It is a very big body. So to make it exist as a foil, one has to hammer aluminium so that it becomes, or it is formed into thin sheets. So that is malleability. You hammer a metal so that it becomes a thin sheet. That's why you will find iron. Iron is used to make iron sheets. Sheets of iron. But still that iron is used to make iron nails. It is used to make iron nails. So malleability, you are looking at ability of a metal. You are looking at ability of hammering a metal so that it can be formed into thin sheets. Then ductility. Ductility is the ability to form a metal or to draw a metal into thin wires. For example, iron, converting it into iron nails, thin bodies. So why are metals malleable and ductile? So one can also say that aluminium is malleable and ductile because it's malleable and ductile. Let me try to write something here. It's malleable and ductile because it's the layers within aluminium. Its layers can slide over each other. Can slide over each other like that. over each other. That is the reason. So metals are malleable and ductile because they are layers. They are made up of layers. Now are you seeing, look at this structure here. Here you have layers. Those are the layers which I'm saying. This first layer can slide over this second layer without necessarily breaking a metallic bond. So that is the reason. What have we said? We have said that metals are malleable and ductile because, for example, here the metal is aluminium. Aluminium is malleable and ductile because its layers. There's something I've missed here. Because its layers. Malleable and ductile because its layers can slide over each other. Layers can slide over each other when they are hammered. Yeah, so that is another property one can think about. Then one can also think about conduction of heat. Metals conduct heat. So aluminium conducts heat. Why? Because now when heat is applied to one end of a metal. If you have your metal like this, and you supply heat here, you connect a heat source here on one side. This metal gains, within it we have electrons that will gain kinetic energy, and that energy is exchanged throughout this body so that the metal conducts heat. What have I said? I have said that a metal conducts heat. Why? When you are having a metal and you apply, if you are having a metal, if you are having a metal like this one and you apply heat on one end of that metal, now this metal has electrons. It has electrons here. It has electrons. Those electrons will gain that heat. Or we say that their kinetic energy increases and that energy is transmitted throughout this structure. Therefore, one can say that aluminium conducts heat. Aluminium conducts heat due to presence of mobile or electrons within its structure that can gain heat energy when it is applied at one end of the metal. What have I said? I have said aluminium aluminium conducts heat. Aluminium conducts heat due to presence of delocalized electrons that gain or that can gain heat energy when it is applied on one end of the metal. Yeah, so one can also think about that. So what are other properties apart from these ones? We have exists as a solid at room temperature, insoluble in water, giant metallic structure, high melting and boiling points, conduct electricity, malleable and ductile. Then which other one? Also conduct heat due to presence of mobile electrons, which gain heat energy when heat is applied on one end of the metal. That is for aluminium. Then which other one? Allow me first stop here.